So what inspired the gold tips?
Gold tips. This is like a symbol of my rebellion from the 9 to 5 norm. The standard,
Yeah.
go get a job and the American dream they sell you. This was like the first step, I think, in saying, I don't, if they don't want to hire me or they don't want me to keep working for them because I have blonde hair, then that's probably a good thing. Like I want to do what I want. I want to wear what I want, be who I want, go wherever I want, whenever I want, and it was kind of just, it was like that last step. I did it a few months before I left my last 9 to 5 job. And me and my girlfriend were going to Tulum for like an end of the year trip. And I felt like that was a great opportunity. It was going to be 2 weeks off of work. So I was like, I'll diet before and then I'll diet right back, so no one says anything or notices anything. And once I got back, I was like, I'm keeping it. And now it's been like 6 months.
I love it. I love it. And if you don't know, we're with a UF legend, right? A Popl legend, a Beverly Hills 90210 legend, right? We're here with Bryce, head of product and partnerships for Popl. Thank you for taking the time to spend some time with the Credential Show, where we make thought-provoking content in the form of information and inspiration. And I'm glad, as you can see right here, what I'm saying? I got my Popl bands, what I'm saying? And Popl, if you don't know, is the greatest, not even virtual business card, but just the greatest business card, or the greatest way to share your information in the world right now, in my opinion. Yes, obviously I'm biased, but it's also based on the fact that inside this band, I can literally touch, not even have to shake your hand, but I can literally touch the back of your iPhone, and then you have access to my podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. You'll have access to my website. That'll go straight to my website, right? When I have merch, literally you can go, I have a link straight to your merch. I have a link straight to my YouTube. I have a link straight to my Cash App. I have a link straight. If I made TikToks, I could have a link to my TikToks. You know what I'm saying? And the person doesn't even have to have the app. It goes literally, when you touch the back of the iPhone, it literally hits it goes straight into a Safari pop-up. So the person doesn't even need this. All you need is this. This is literally the best way to share information. You know what I'm saying? This is not even an ad. This is just, hey, I liked it and this is dope. So if I like it, yes, I had done sales. If you can tell, I'm going to talk about it.
I was going to say, we got to get Charles in here to be our head of sales.
Yeah, man. This thing is cool, man. So like I said, thank you for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. And the one thing you forgot to add is it's going to take you to your master's class. I'm excited for when that comes out.
Exactly. So when I do the master class on all this stuff, and different projects and ventures, it'll go straight there. So I might say too, like if it's permissible, let's take a tour of what you can show, what can't you show, whatnot, of the Popl Casa, because this is live from the Popl Casa, which is dope.
Definitely. Yeah, we can do that now, later, whatever you want to do.
I mean, what do you think would be better? Just let me know.
We could do it real quick.
Let's go for it.
Yeah. So this is like the war room, the living room.
Let me intro real quick though.
Okay.
All right. So we have Bryce, head of product and partnerships with Popl, live from the Popl crib. In what part of California?
We're in Beverly Hills, 90210.
Straight from 90210, the official area code of the Real Housewives, Beverly Hills. So we are in one of their cribs that they pay for. Now I'm kidding, but one of Popl's cribs, and we are nice enough to have Bryce give us a tour of the Popl Casa. So take it away.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me. Very excited to be here. This is my first podcast. So
Oh, you're
See
in
how
for
it
some
goes.
fun. We're gonna laugh, we're gonna question, and we're gonna learn. So it's gonna be dope.
All right. So this is the living room. It's like the war room where we get stuff done.
So is
So
that where you have like your weekly team meetings, monthly team meetings?
yeah, I mean, we pretty much have daily team meetings. So right after this, we have our 8:30 Pacific time meeting where we all just, it's our team stand up and talk about what's going on, goals for the day, what we're working on, that kind of thing. So this
That's
is
dope.
where the magic happens. And
Okay.
then out here is the
So let me ask
backyard
you,
of the pool.
as we're
Yeah.
walking and talking, since you're the head of product and partnerships, what are you talking about during your portion of the team meeting?
So obviously, for the most part, as the name states, it's products and partnerships. And I don't want to get too far in case I lose Wi-Fi, but new products, which we're dropping all the time. We're at the end of the day, we're a software company, but we're unique in that we have a hardware aspect as well, which we can get into later.
Perfect.
But I manage all the hardware part of the products. So anytime there's a
And
new
so
form factor,
that that back area is where all the fun happens.
yeah, exactly. That's where the day events happen. Got a little
I got the
basketball
hoop
hoop
too.
there.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
but actually it's missing a rim right now. Someone went a little too hard.
Ah, yeah. Oh, you got an overachiever. That's good. Keep that person.
Exactly. I showed up and the rim was down. I was like, I bet we get a lot more work done now that there's no basketball.
Yeah.
So, and then putting green, kitchen, and we're in the flat part of the hills. So before I came out here, I didn't know too much about it. But when you think Beverly Hills, you think the big views of the city. But this is actually the flats. So we're like a block away from Rodeo Drive. Um,
Okay. That's
so
a
it's
big
actually,
shopping area, right?
yeah, yeah. So it's very centrally located in Los Angeles to for people to come visit us to go visit people, have meetings and things like that, which was the purpose of this house. Um,
Mm.
and
Serve
then
serve more than one. So
the
you guys have
third,
a lot. You host a lot of clients there. You host a lot of events there. You create a lot of content there.
yep,
How many
definitely.
bedrooms is it?
And what's that?
How many bedrooms?
This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bedrooms.
Oh, cool. So like the whole
Yeah.
team lives there.
Yeah, pretty much. Well,
Like the
we've
main the
grown since
main.
we moved in here, so not everyone lives here yet now, but yeah, the core team is all here.
Okay. Okay. That's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
So you go back and forth, right? All right,
Yep.
cool. So how many people are like you on the team where you go back and forth and you meet up for this how long do you stay? Like a week at a time, 2 weeks at a time?
Yeah. So I spend 25% of my time here. So I spend 1 week every month out here, and then the rest of my time back in Fort Lauderdale. I'm actually probably the only one who travels that frequently. So our co-founders, Jason and Nick, well, actually, no, Nick's not a California native, but they met at UCLA, so they've been out here in California for a minute. Um, and then we've got Jeremy, the third partner. He's actually from Oklahoma, but he's lived all over the country. Now that COVID has kind of subsided, he's actually in Oklahoma right now. So he'll come back and forth, but he's pretty much a permanent resident here. And then we've got Bree, who's customer service. She lives here full time. And Ryan, Jason's brother, he's our data scientist. He's also here full time. But then we have other engineers. We got a lot of like contract people that don't live here. But yeah, that's the core team.
Cool, cool. So like the core team's about what is that, like six, seven of you guys.
Yeah, so it's me, Jason, Nick, Jeremy, Ryan, and Bree. So yeah, so 6 of us.
I like talking to people who are in positions like yourself, but this is not something you dreamed about. You know what I'm saying? This is not something, hey,
Mhm.
you know what? When I'm 5 years old, I'm dreaming about, being the head of product and partnerships for Popl, like,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? So it's like you have to pivot, you have to be adaptable, and you have to be pursuing something that you like or are interested in, like not
Hmm.
necessarily a career, but a lifestyle. Like your lifestyle is helping, your lifestyle is sales, your lifestyle is houses, your lifestyle is, like your passion. I sometimes I call it lifestyle, sometimes I call it passion, but you have to pursue that. And then through your passion, it takes you to Popl, it takes you to Kickback, it takes you to, it takes you through different experiences to prepare you for that one experience, or to open your mind or your awareness to an experience that gets you there. So I like going backwards to go forward, to go present, and to go future. Cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of like I forget the name of the Pixar movie. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where he's, I think it's called Spark.
Spark. I don't think I've seen that Pixar.
So it might not be called Spark, it might be something else, but it's about finding your spark, right? And like, what is that? And it's a really kind of trippy movie. It's a kids Pixar movie, but it shouldn't be for kids. Um, it touches on a lot of like very deep topics. But yeah, it's about finding your spark and what you're here to do, how that relates to what you want to do, what you're supposed to do, and what you're good at doing. So you
Hmm.
should watch that, definitely. It's pretty
Yeah,
much exactly
Spark.
what you just described.
Yeah, Spark. All right, put that. Make some note adjustments. Before we get into, Popl, your role, your responsibilities, I want to start off with, we're doing this virtually, through an app that was really huge in the pandemic time of being created and getting traction with Zoom. So, what have you learned new, or what perspective have you gained since COVID has happened? Like for me, this podcast is made out of the pandemic. With my situation, I decided, I want to do something, I want to create something, I want to learn something, and I created podcast. So for you, what have you learned, like a new skill or a new perspective, or maybe even both?
Yeah, definitely. Well, and first, thank you for having me. Very excited to be here. Very excited for our conversation. So let's get it. Um, but COVID, yeah, obviously changed the world, changed all of us. For some of us, it was an opportunity. Some of us, it was a challenge, which, either side of the coin is also an opportunity. So, ah, COVID has actually been like one of the best years of my life. It allowed me to kind of move from a place that I was into the place that I am now, which is one of the happiest places I've ever been in my life. Um, oh, you know, to say what exactly did I learn? I've learned a lot of stuff because a lot of things have changed for me. I left, the 9 to 5 standard, wake up, go do your job, turn off the computer, that's it, to what I'm doing now, which is I feel like I'm living the dream truly. People ask, how are you? You say living the dream, but I don't feel like I'm working anymore. So I don't feel like I trade my time for money anymore, which is crazy because that was always the goal. Early on, maybe I thought the goal was money, but money is just a vehicle, right? At the end of the day, it's once you start doing what you want and exchanging your time for for more time. And so I think what I learned through the pandemic is that that's possible. um, I've picked up a lot of skills along the way, as I got to this point, but really to know that it's possible to get to where you want to go, even though you may not know exactly where you want to go. And this is kind of what you touched on before about, um, you know, I don't think anyone woke up when they were 5 years old and said, "Daddy, I want to be the head of product and partnerships at Popl," because that job didn't exist, and it's such a vague, specific thing. Um, and I had ideas kind of what I wanted to do generally, but it wasn't this. But now that I'm here, it's like this is exactly what it was. So yeah, the lesson that I learned is that it's possible to get to that point. And the recipe for it was a lot of hard work, a lot of days and nights and weekends that I wasn't doing what I wanted to do, necessarily, doing things that I was interested in, but not exactly in the capacity that I wanted them to be. It's hard to explain that, but I think as we go here, it'll really make sense. But yeah, I put in a lot of time and work into things that worked and didn't work. And it all kind of came together, and things worked out, and here I am. So yeah, the biggest lesson is work hard and have a kind of a goal, at least, even if that goal isn't where you end up, it'll take you there. So yeah.
So I have a question for you based on what you said. So you said that you figured out it was possible, right? And I think we all know that it's possible, but what kept you motivated? What kept you fighting to actually chase that dream, chase that reality of it is possible? Because that's, I think, the biggest hurdle that most of us face, being humans, that we know what's possible, but we can't stay motivated, we can't stay encouraged enough, to actually do it. So what helped you in your pursuit?
So the answer is pretty easy. It was like a feeling of being uncontent with where I was and what I had and what I was doing, which is unfortunate that it was a negative influence that caused it, but I think that's how most of us are, people that live the American dream, the classic story of the immigrant that comes over, works really, really hard, never stops to provide for their family and create a new life. I feel like it was that exact feeling where it's like, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not doing what I want to be doing. And I'm not necessarily happy doing it, which is, unfortunate, but look where it led me, and there's millions and millions and millions of stories and people who have gone through the exact same process in one way or another. But yeah, that's what kept me going, was knowing that like what I did today and what I felt today isn't what I want to do and feel tomorrow, and so every day there was that kind of drive to push me to figure out, I got to do something. I got to get out of the cycle. I got to get out of the system, break the simulation, so to speak. And that's what kept me going for sure, day in, day out, even though like it was miserable sometimes. You wake up, do things you don't want to do, got to work a little longer. But yeah, that's what
and
kept me
that
going.
and that's what they call sacrifice. That's, I
Yep.
think, what it comes down to is you have to be willing to sacrifice and see the long-term picture, like you said, of what is possible, and realize that it's okay to not know for a year or two.
Yep.
It's okay to be selective, because that's what you want to do, because you don't want to keep moving, right? If you know that there's something that that you want, but more importantly, you have to know what you want and write it down. So it's a process. To
Yep.
You can't just, no one just says, oh, I'm just going to keep believing. No, they say that, but they write it down,
Write
and
it down.
then
And
they sacrifice.
for many months, the mirror in my bedroom had like the main, high level goals written on it with a Sharpie, so that I couldn't even see my reflection without looking at, those things staring me back in the face. So
Woo, I like that. I like
yeah.
that. I like that. And that's what it takes. And that's why I'm so glad that you're sharing that. And I'm so glad that, people share that on their podcast, people share that on their YouTube pages, to remind yourself, because we all need daily motivation and daily reminders and daily tricks on how to accomplish what we want to accomplish in this American lifestyle, because like you said, everyone signs up for their own simulation depending on what country they live in. So
Mm-hmm.
don't you want to beat the game?
Yep.
So beating the game is a lot of it's knowledge and accountability of yourself. And if you get knowledge and you hold yourself accountable, you will achieve it. And then you just
Yep.
need to sacrifice to wait on the time for it to hit.
Absolutely. And you surround yourself with people like, I'm surrounded by you, you're surrounded by me. You find those people that share that common goal, because the other thing is not everyone could have the conversation that we're having, you know, and that is super key as well.
Exactly. And you have to search for it, or you have to not even search for it. Sometimes it comes to you, you know, and you have to be willing and being open. That's what people mean by being open. You know, you have to be receptive to the unknown, receptive to the unfamiliar, because you won't know if you like it, or it's okay to not like it. And it's okay to try something and not like it. At least you
Yep.
know now, and there won't have to be unknown. So you won't have to be tense about it, or, you know, queasy, or like, you know, like, I don't know, I don't
Uncertain.
like
Yeah.
this. Good.
Mhm.
I can move on. I can make a
That's
quick
called
decision,
experience. Yep.
you know? And
Mhm.
but it's crazy. It takes different perspectives, and it takes different type of conversations to do all this. So, all right. So from, because I want to get into what you're doing now. So I want to figure it out. So from kid to through your high school years, like, are you thinking about a career, or are you just being a kid and you're just doing kid stuff?
Yep.
Right? Talk about it.
I was very much just being a kid for, I think, longer than most, which I think most would just describe as immaturity. Um, so, I have to preface with that I've been very blessed to have been given access to all the resources that I could have ever wanted. So I can never go a day without being grateful for that. But for example, my mom applied to college for me, to give you a kind of an idea of how excited I was to grow up and go get a job and have a career, and how much I was thinking about any of that, because I wasn't. Um, so, I mean, yeah, and my mom always made sure that I was doing good in school, and didn't fail math like she did. And I became a mechanical engineer. So I'm very grateful for all of that. But I was not thinking about what am I going to do. Um, what do I want to do? I knew, I think by the time I graduated, I was like, okay, I'll be engineering because I like figuring out how things work. And I think at the end of the day, an engineer is a problem solver. Engineering is basically the application of science to real world problems. So using science to solve problems. And we all learned as kids that there's a scientific method, right? And that's what it is. It's step-by-step analytical thinking and the ability to sit down and solve hard problems. Um, and I'm very grateful for the experiences, having gone through UF and learning to think that way. Although, like, as soon as I left, I used very little of that engineering degree. And this is another topic for another day, but the school system trains people to go get jobs that they don't want to do, to live lives that they don't want to live. And it's frustrating. And fortunately, I think at least I got a degree that allowed me to think critically and solve lots of different problems.
Let me ask you, based on what you said, because I agree with that too, right? I agree that a lot of times school is to work careers that you realize you don't even like at all. And the reason why I think that is because we have to make the decision of, or marketed, I would say we're marketed into thinking we have to make the decision on what we have to be and why we have to be it at 17, 18 as high school students, instead of taking 2, 3 years off. work work, just do different things, be a cashier, be a server, uh work as an unpaid coach or a coach volunteer, and figure out which one of these things do I like, be work in a bank, for a couple months, like what do I like, and then now you go to college, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because based on what you're saying, and I was gonna ask you, like, you didn't even want to be an engineer, like, really, you had no
Not,
interest in it.
yeah. And so, exactly. And it's funny because I was having a conversation with a friend at the wharf in Fort Lauderdale a couple weekends ago. And he does real estate, commercial real estate, which is tried and true, right? Like, you didn't need to go to college for everyone in the world to tell you that real estate is a proven path. And I saw that you had Joey on the show recently, and that's exactly what he's doing.
The duplexes.
Yeah. And so I was talking to him. I was like, you didn't need to go to school to do that. And I was talking about my experience, and that, like, I don't really use much of what I learned. However, like that degree is a
A
a
skill
kind of
set.
a step. It's a skill set, but it's also a credential, right? That a lot of people will
It's a conversation
weigh
starter.
heavily when evaluating you, up front. But anyway, we're having the conversation that it's like, neither of us, college wasn't really meant for either of us. What we, learned is how to socialize, how to network, that kind of thing. And so there's value to it for sure. But yeah, it's not for everybody. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people become victims of that system. And I'm guessing you probably read Think and Grow Rich.
Hmm. I've listened
Yeah.
to, yeah, I listen to books. I don't read them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Efficiency. I forget who the name of, is it Carnegie Mellon? Andrew Carnegie Mellon, I think, right? Was one of the original American tycoons.
Yes.
And I don't
Yeah.
know if he was,
Dale
I forget
Carnegie
the story here,
or
but
Andrew Carnegie.
yeah. But talking about the school system was designed in the early, like kind of industrial revolution, post-industrial revolution days. It was intended to create employees, American employees, to fuel what was America at the time. And we are no longer that America, and so that system is designed literally to create people to, become the gears and the cogs in the system. And it's kind of antiquated, but it keeps our country running. So yeah, conversation for another day, but for sure.
And let's go there though. But you think is it keeping our country running, or is it preventing our country from excelling and getting back to where we could be or where we should be? You know what I'm
Well,
saying? Because if we're
yeah,
gonna go deep about it, like degrees never mattered. They never mattered. You know what I'm saying? It was always the network, the people you're going to be surrounded by. That's what's always has mattered. That is what always matters. That's why it's quote unquote exclusive to go to these schools. They're not trying to hide the education because they're taught by people who haven't actually applied anything. Only
right.
select few schools really have people who've applied it and actually done it. So but what they're keeping away is the access to the people, access to the networks, access to the families.
Yeah,
That's what
the
they're keeping
industry.
away.
Yeah.
In college, right? Uh,
Hmm.
did you join a fraternity for fun, or did you think about like the networking and that aspect of it?
I don't think, going back to being mature and not having like, a big picture vision and long-term goals at that point, it wasn't to build my network. It was more to have a network at that moment. So, like I grew up playing sports. I was on the football team in high school, swim team. So I knew what it was like to be surrounded by people with common, at least interests, if not common goals. And so when you talk about networking, it was more about networking at that moment for personal happiness and to have friends and do all the things that you hear that fraternities do, have a good time and, play intramural sports and meet girls, all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So that's the main reason I joined. And there was an older brother influence, not my own older brother. I don't have one, but a friend from the neighborhood, his older brother had gone to UF and had joined a fraternity and always came back and just, looked up to this kid as an idol. And so for me, that was the only thing I cared about when I went to college was I'm going to join a fraternity. I wasn't worried about going to, taking classes or anything really, but it all worked
That's
out.
real though. I'm glad you're sharing that because that just gives perspective of like everyone's journey is different. There's no cookie cutter way to reach a certain level of success or a certain and sometimes it takes just your life is your life. Your life is, life is much about exposure and access to information than anything,
Yeah.
because
Experience. Just, yeah.
if you don't have that kid who talks about the fraternity and also when are you joining fraternity at 18?
Yeah.
Yeah,
18.
you know what I'm saying? You're not like I joined the fraternity at 21. So
Mm.
what's crazy is like how you viewed it and how I viewed it was totally different. Like I knew off rip, I'm coming in at network. And also I was curious. I'm like, what are they really? Is it like the fraternity, because you hear stories about, yeah, Greek life in college and like in these historic schools. So it's
Yoga
curious.
parties and keg stands, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, or not even that, like the just is there secret stuff, like,
Yeah,
or
right,
is there not
right.
secret
What is
stuff?
this secret society? Yeah.
Yeah, it was intriguing to me, and like, and also I just knew if my goals don't work out, now I'm gonna have people that I know they're gonna do something,
Yeah.
and I can have a network to lean on, or I now have a network to push me. And like you said, going back to, I already done sales at this point, so I knew the importance of circle of influence, and
Yep.
you are who you surround yourself with. So I was kind of conscious. I was intentional about surrounding myself with people that, all right, it's cool. Like now, fast forward, I'm out of college. I have kids that are working with banks, kids working with big tech companies, kids working being doctors, dentists, and all that. It's dope to have. It pushes you. You can't be no
Yep.
bum. You can't, when your friends are all doing well and challenging themselves, so that's cool. I'm glad for you. So talk about if a good college experience, or a couple, it could be fraternity related, not that like stuck out to you while at UF.
Good college experience. Um, yeah, so for the first few years, it was kind of just school was not the focus. It was just becoming social. Like there was, uh, I'm a natural introvert, and so like I describe myself as an introvert who wishes they were an extrovert, right? So I'm always trying to put myself out there and talk to people. It's just not doesn't come naturally to me. But so for the first few years, that was my entire goal was just to make friends, become social, be interesting, have fun experiences. um, and all of that happened, met a lot of cool people, did a lot of cool things. Gainesville is a great college town to do that. Those are more like a collective sum of events, but I would say that once things started really impacting me was like towards the end, there started to become this feeling of, okay, like I got to figure something else out because I'm going to have to leave soon. Right. They're going to kick me out eventually, and I got to do something. And so one of those things was I went to Peru for a summer. I ended up living in Peru for 3 months, was only supposed to be there for 1 month on a volunteer program, not directly sponsored by the school, but I found it through the school. It's called Wind Aid. And we went and you build, construct, and install small wind turbines to generate electricity for remote villages in Peru that don't have access to grid electricity. And so that was kind of a first big life-changing experience for me. Like I said, I was only supposed to be there for a month, ended up wanting to stay because I was having such a good time meeting people from all over like literally every country in the world. There was big groups of people every month that would come in and go through this program and donate a wind turbine. And we all lived together in a house in Trujillo, Peru, which is, I believe, the second biggest city. So that was kind of like a life-changing, life-impacting experience. I got my first tattoo there. So Vida con sentido is basically loosely translated to meaningful life in Spanish. And that's kind of what that trip was looking for, like kind of one of those first steps in looking for something. And it was engineering related, which was cool. Problem solving, building, creating, and giving. Go ahead.
What do you mean by like, what were you looking for? If you don't
I wasn't sure, it's almost like I was kind of wandering, like hoping something would come. What was cool about with Peru is that it allowed me to combine two skill sets. One was engineering, and two was the ability to speak Spanish, which I'm not fluent by any means, but as many of us growing up in South Florida did, took Spanish for many years in school, but never had the opportunity to use it. So I knew when like traveling to do something like this, it made sense to go to a Spanish speaking country to use, the knowledge that was just sitting in the back of my brain, totally unused. So
for
that
real.
and engineering,
See,
yeah,
like I gotta go. Hey man, what? But I got a good accent, but I don't really know the language.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't either. And I'm sure like people, Spanish speaking people, when I'm in those countries, laugh and giggle and think it's like adorable that I'm trying, because it probably sounds like a fifth grader with a speech impediment. But um, I do my best. I always say that if you pick me up and drop me off in any Spanish speaking country, like I'll be fine.
If I have my iPhone, I should be fine because there's Translate now on there.
If you have your iPhone, you can't bank on that.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So let me
But
ask you, like, how'd you find this like, what made you seek out this program, and how'd you find WinAid at UF?
yeah, see, these are like these moments in your life where you're not like, you don't necessarily know what drew you to do this, but it drew you to an experience that definitely altered your trajectory. Um, at the time, actually, I had kind of been on and off with this girl in college who wasn't necessarily the best influence. And between that and kind of just like the stress of school and not having been super focused on school, because that wasn't my focus while I was there.
Because you never liked it.
Yeah, I wasn't there for necessarily the right reasons.
Yeah.
I was there for the right intentions, but not the self-fulfilling reasons. And so I was kind of getting to a point where I was like, I don't know if you'd call it burnout, or I needed to escape, from everything that I knew and experienced. And Gainesville, Florida, if you know anything about it, which you obviously do, but
For those who don't.
it's for those who don't, for the folks at home, shout out Gainesville. But man, it's a little bubble. It's a fairy tale land. It's an SEC school. It's a state school. It's a football school. It's a fraternity sorority school. It's a very smart school, but it's a land like no other, where things,
It's the
yeah,
South.
yeah, it's a fairy tale land, and it's an incredible place, but you very much become absorbed in this bubble, and sometimes forget that life exists outside of it in a very different capacity. And I think I started like realizing that, like I was realizing that, but I needed like I wanted a major kind of mental shift, right? And so I figured going abroad in some way or another would do that, and also get away from like kind of this semi-toxic relationship, and like just the rhythm, the mundane day to day. And so I basically went to the career resource center, not career resource, but there was like at the hub, I don't know what it is, like study abroad center, to see what they had to offer. And there were some programs that were offered by the school, sponsored by the school, where you'd actually go with a professor and he'd, take a class while you're there. But it was like Germany to do an engineering class. It was precision engineering, and they take you to the BMW factory. You'd be in Europe, but it's funny because none of those things really aligned with me. Like Europe, I don't know. I prefer South America. Precision engineering is cool, but I'm really not that kind of engineer. And I wanted a little bit something more. I wanted some sense of freedom, and I didn't really feel like being chaperoned by the school was what I wanted to do. And then the Spanish speaking thing kind of clinched it. And then as well, WinAid is a charity organization. It exists to help people and make their lives better. So it all became a no-brainer once I learned about this opportunity. And so fortunately, my parents, again, given all the resources that I could have ever wanted to have access to, made it possible, got on a plane, and 3 months later came back, I would say, with a very different perspective.
Let me ask you, would you say your parents are like your role models, or the people you looked up to, or no? Who was that person, or was there a person? Not really.
I mean, for most of my childhood, there wasn't necessarily. One of the role models was that older brother who was in the fraternity from, my buddy from Lighthouse Point, where I grew up. His older brother would come back, and he was someone I aspired to be. That might be like one of the first people that I aspired to be like. But yeah, growing up, I wish I could say that my parents were my role models, and in a sense, like everyone's parents are role models as long as they're good parents, and mine certainly were. But I definitely didn't want to become like my parents. So my dad is a pharmacist who's he became a victim of the system. Like the greatest human being, most selfless, loving, caring, giving, sacrifice, talk about sacrifice, everything for me and my younger sister to get to where we were. But his parents, he was born and grew up in New York. And his parents were like 17 years old when he was born, didn't know anything, not college educated, not particularly smart, in general. And all they knew was, you got to go be a doctor or a lawyer. Fortunately, there was money from the grandparents and everyone lived together. So it was a pretty good situation. My dad always had everything he ever wanted and more. But he didn't know anything, and he's kind of like me, a natural introvert. So he didn't have like that natural drive to go figure out and network and meet people. And so they said, Phil, you got to go be a doctor or a lawyer. And so he was at UF as well. And he was living with 3 other roommates who were all in med school like he was. And he quickly realized that they had a drive that he didn't. There was something there that he didn't have. They were all type A personalities who were studying all the time and had the passion for what they were doing. And I think probably 2-3 years in school, he realized like, med school doesn't end after 4 years, it's a life commitment. And so it wasn't going to be for him. Unfortunately, at that time, pharmacy school is not what it is now, where it costs a lot of money to go be a pharmacist, to go to that school. And there's extra years of schooling. I think he only had to do maybe an extra year or something. So it kind of worked out. But fast forward, he pretty much hated pharmacy for his entire life, just making really good money for his family, but, not enjoying it. And so in a sense, I don't think a role model is someone you don't want to be like, but he was definitely someone I learned lessons from, not to end up that way. And so that had a big influence in the decisions I made to become who I am, kind of in the opposite sense of a role model, right? Asking, what'd you do to get there? It's kind of more observing, what should I not do to end up where I don't want to be, which is equally valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What was the
No, I
main
was
question?
asking your role models. I was asking your
Oh
role.
yeah, role models. Okay,
That's
so
real
then
though. But that's real
yeah.
though, because you got lost in it, because it's like when you get older, it's interesting, like you reflect on it, because same for me, like I didn't have nobody. I had people like it was like you. I had like family friends that are like family, they're not technically family, but they're family, but they are
Mhm.
technically family. You know what I'm saying? So I
Yep.
had people I could look at, I didn't have that, because you need a lot of times too is like with role models, you want it, you just you want it. You want to, as men, I don't know, as a man, like you want to have something to aspire, something that you
Aspire to and be
yeah,
like. Mhm.
yeah. So it's interesting to get perspective on that, and also it's okay not to have not to have some. It's
Mhm.
okay. Because like I have like Kevin Garnett. That's my favorite player. Of any sport. But it's not like he's my role model. Like, I'm not gonna be 7 foot.
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
not gonna be 7 foot. Like we're not gonna have. That's not it. So it's interesting when you're in college. Like you said, you're going into college and you're picking some at 17, 18. Is difficult. So I say all that to also say, like, it's interesting too, coming from a perspective of like your dad working all the time and having a crazy work schedule to where he's here but he's not here.
Mhm. Yeah, and I wouldn't even say that he was absent. He wasn't working that much. It was just that the work that he was doing was not fulfilling for him.
Mhm.
Like he was definitely around, at the sports games, coming as many, PTA school events as he could. But it was more about the sacrifice to just do a job, even if generally it was 9 to 5, that he did not want to be doing.
It's an energy
For
sucker,
a
but
long.
it's similar to, now that we're adults, it's knowing that what I mean, not present, is like mentally, like,
Mm,
you know what I'm saying? Like he was there, but he wasn't there because he was thinking. And pharmacy is a complicated profession.
mm-hmm,
That's and science, and you're also dealing with people. you know? So that's a complicated thing. It's like for me, when I first started doing sales, when you have those highs, it's great. You can go home and it's great. When you start having those lows and you're dealing with that, and then you go home, it's like, it's tough. As like, 'cause I started sales at 19. You know, it's tough. Like when you have a shitty day, like no sales, and then your mom trying to talk to you, like, don't talk to me. You know, just leave me alone. Like you're like good. And then now you realize, okay, that's why my mom was mad at me, because like she's where she doesn't want to be, and she's
Yep.
sacrificing,
Yeah, you
and
carry
then
that with you. You carry that energy.
you carry that home. You
Yep.
carry that home if you have nowhere to decompress it at or release
Hmm.
it at. You know, so it's like you were aware enough to like see, what it's doing and how to make that shift. So that's
Exactly.
interesting. I appreciate you for sharing that. Well, talk about your mom. Like hype your mom up. Talk about your mom.
I mean, my mom, sweetest mom ever. She, as soon as I was born, she's, stopped working and just focused on raising me and my sister, who's 4.5 years younger. And like, I could argue that maybe she was overly involved in my academic upbringing, always on PTA, like at school, when I'm at school, doing stuff to the point like where it's in high school, it's like people are like, oh, Bryce, your mom's over there. And it's like, oh, cool, but like she did all of that to make sure that I was like on the right path and doing the right things. Because like I mentioned, I wasn't the one worried about passing math class and writing my essay to get into school, to college, because I had no interest in doing that. And so I, I have to owe everything to her, to have gotten me the credentials and kind of the key skills. She even made me, take Mavis Beacon typing courses because she knew that you had to learn how to type. And it's funny because she is the worst with a computer, to the point where it's like, if she needs help, I'm like, oh God, here we go again, but she knew that that was important. And, to this day, like I'm grateful that I can type so quickly and knock things out. So just kind of making sure, being over my shoulder all the time, making sure that I was staying out of trouble, just doing well in school, and being given, going to the best public schools. She made sure to find out, even in elementary school, she found the special school in Fort Lauderdale that was a magnet Montessori, and it was like the best elementary school in, around town. And then Pompano Beach High School was also a very unique magnet school, application only, and just making sure that I was always doing that. Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, sports, summer camps, all of that, to make me well-rounded. And so she just kind of, dedicated her life to making sure that me and my sister turned out okay. And I have to have eternal gratitude for that. I don't know how much she actually taught me herself, but for everything else she made happen, like she didn't have to teach me anything. Um, yeah, yeah,
That
that's my mom's
mom
story.
is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And that's like a real parent. It's like knowing what I'm good at and knowing what I can't do, and
Hmm.
using my resources to make sure that, like that's real parenting, because we don't, like, no one has all the answers, like, and it's about, like, if you really want it, knowledge and research, like,
Yeah.
yeah. So what is a Montessori? Because I've always been curious about those schools. Like what what is the curriculum or like the daily activities of a Montessori school?
Yeah. So Montessori is it's a school of thought about how to teach. It's like a philosophy, and this was elementary school. I don't know if they have Montessori, as you get older and progress, but it was basically very visual and very hands-on. So like they had blocks, and one big block represented 100, a smaller one represented 10, and then a small one represented 1. And it made it easy to visualize, I think, math
Mhm.
uh, and science, and little tips and tricks and tools that it was very like visual, physical, and hands-on. I don't know much more about the Montessori philosophy. I'm sure it's very interesting, especially if you're into education, which um, we both have that interest. But yeah, it's a unique school of thought about teaching people, and I think it particularly applies to young minds, how to mold them, how to get them to think, um, help them visualize and understand, so that it's not just forcing knowledge down their throat, it's actually understanding what's happening.
Mhm. All right. Damn, that's dope.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
appreciate you for sharing because I like to expose people to different stories of different upbringings to show you like there's no cookie cutter way. And I like to build a catalog of different people who come on. And I always talk about, the upbringing, stuff like that to just show how exposure and awareness of what's going on and exposure to either being intentional on leeching onto certain things that dictates how we're gonna be when we're older, for
Absolutely.
the most part.
Yep.
So the earlier, and it's never too late to make the switch for the better. It's never too late, If anything, it's right on time. As soon as you
Mhm.
right on time, it's right on time. It's never too late. It's right on time.
Yeah.
So how do you go from working to now Popl? Like what led you to where you're at now?
Yeah. So again, it's just so funny how everything like leads to the next step so perfectly in retrospect. You look back and it's like, this is exactly how I got to this step and how I ended up here. But it's impossible to foresee that when you're in the moment. So I graduated school with no job because I hadn't really put any focus on
You want to
doing
do
that.
it. You just knew you had to get the degree.
Yeah, and I figured that it's messed up because it was just like, oh, if I get an engineering degree, that equals the second I walk out of those doors, someone's going to hand me a check for $100,000. In my mind, that was exactly
But
what
that
was
is
going to
the
happen.
myth we're told though. That's one of those
Yeah,
myths. Like, if you engineer,
yeah.
you automatically 100.
They were going to give me a certificate, and I was going to walk out and hand that certificate to someone, and they were going to give me $100,000 check. I was convinced that that's exactly the way it was going to happen. And then, as graduation started looming closer, it was like that oh shit mentality. Like, I don't have a job, and it was very last minute. I started getting scared, and it was starting to become like uh, wasn't like a dark time because that's way too extreme to say. And I was like, I was okay. And I had fortunately, I was very lucky. Also, shout out my girlfriend, who I met at school, which is another thing that, one thing leads to another. Went to school to become social, joined the fraternity. I ended up being a busboy at AO Pi sorority, and
Bus
ended up
boy.
meeting my
Hey, I was a
girlfriend.
bus boy. Legend.
Yeah, yeah, busboys.
Big
And
move.
so and I got, I was given the opportunity to become a busboy because of like the social like efforts that I made while I was at school. And a lot of people say like being a busboy at a sorority is a dream job, and to be honest, it'll be one of the best jobs I've ever had. Free food, hanging out with a lot of girls all the time, and and there's a group of busboys who are really cool, and that was an incredible experience. And I digress, but um, point of the story is that it allowed me to meet my girlfriend, who I'm with 5 years later now, and has supported me through all of this. And another one of those influences that you just gotta be super grateful for and never forget about. But anyway, the point of that is that although I was becoming desperate and like it was starting to feel scary, my girlfriend was there, and that was a huge, like, she was a rock for me. And so probably with a year left, I was like, oh crap, I got to do something because I don't have a job. So I started trying to get involved with the research at the school. And I worked in an engineering lab under a PhD professor for like 6 months. And that was an incredible experience, learned from that. But 6 months is not long enough to really like make a dent on the resume. And then I started really going ham applying for jobs. And by the time I walked out of there, I didn't have a job. And it was like, that's when it got kind of like dark-ish. I've a sad person. I've never even been able to fathom what depression could be. But as soon as I walked out there without a job, left my girlfriend there, like still together, but like just not knowing what was going on, that was the first time that I ever felt what could probably describe as like depression, right? And desperation. But fortunately, like going back to what we talked about in the beginning, the drive to know that this is not okay. Like I gotta be better. I can do better. And that's what like kept pushed me through that. Um, but that was like probably the darkest, worst time of my life, not knowing, and like having spent all this time at school, like getting an engineering degree, and maybe I'm not going to get a job, and it was scary. And so I just was applying for a bunch of jobs, and then there happened to be one. So at the time I was living at home with my parents in Lighthouse Point, which is kind of South Florida, Fort Lauderdale area. And I found a job on Craigslist, which is funny because I've always like been a big Craigslist guy, like finding deals. And I even found some gigs while I was in Gainesville. I was using 3D modeling, which I learned in school, to design outdoor kitchens, like luxury kitchens with grills and stuff. I was doing that for some cash on the side at school. And so I knew that Craigslist was a resource, you know? And so I was on Craigslist and I found this job, product development associate at King of Fans in Oakland Park, Florida. And I was like, no way. And I have to stop myself here because I probably missed the key part. So when you talked about what do you want to do and like, what are your interests and how did I become the head of products at Popl? At that end of that period at the end of school where I was like freaking out and really like trying to figure out what am I going to do, I was really thinking about what I wanted to do. And I've always had a passion for shoes, you know, like collecting shoes growing up. I was buying them on eBay, like reselling them for more than I bought them, like wear them, resell them for more. All the kids always complimented me in middle school. And so I just love shoes. And I was like, you know, I want to be a product design engineer at Nike. And I found out at the time about the self-tying Nike shoes where you press a button, they lace up and you're good to go. I was like, that is the coolest thing ever. Like if I could choose one job, it would be to design the next iteration of that. And so I was like trying to figure out how to do that, how to get, you know, work at shoe companies in the engineer design department, something like that. And I watched, there's a Netflix series about art and design. And there's one that focuses on Tinker Hatfield, who, if you haven't seen this was also one of those kind of books, stories, like, yeah, like one of those pieces of resources that have an impact. So Tinker Hatfield was, he was like, I guess, head of design and engineering at Nike, who, when they signed Michael Jordan, he designed the Jordan 1s. And just, you know, can you imagine like when that shoe hit the market, like, and the success that it had? And he pretty much designed the entire Jordan line after that. I think he was, he didn't do Air Maxes. That was the other, that was the founder, which Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. That book completely changed my course. I read that right after I graduated and resonated with everything in that book. And I have to say that everything that's happened to me since, I think, was a direct result of that book. I don't think there's been anything that has had as much impact on my life as Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. So
thank you for saying that. And I try to stress that every freaking podcast or everything. Like, books are the gatekeepers of, like, that's the thing.
20, 30, 40 years of knowledge someone wrote down in 40 pages for you to digest in a however long you can read a book, 4 hours, 2 days, whatever.
Download decades of data in hours.
Right into your brain.
Thank you for sharing that. So continue.
Yeah. And so that book changed my directory, changed my life. This special, I think it's called The Art of Design. It's a series on Netflix that chronicles like top successful designers. Tinker Hatfield was the guy that worked with Michael Jordan, designed all of the Jordans, and just like massive success. And then he headed up this self-tying shoe project. And I told myself that that's exactly what I need to be doing. There's nothing, not even a slight variation of a half a degree from that could be possibly what I should be doing with my life. And so, like, I mean, I was applying to every single job, writing crazy cover letters, reaching out to every single employee at Adidas, Nike, Under Armour on LinkedIn. And I was like, this is what I have to do. And it wasn't working out because I hadn't put in enough time long-term to set myself up to be in that position. And yeah, it was like kind of like sad and depressing. It's like, this probably isn't going to work out. But anyway, so back to Craigslist and finding that job at King of Fans. So turns out the manufacturer of every ceiling fan and most outdoor landscape lighting that you see when you walk into Lowe's and Home Depot, their headquarters is in Oakland Park, Florida, right off I-95. They manufacture all of this in China, but, you know, who knew? And so I found this job, and it honestly, besides the product, was just exactly what I wanted to be doing. And so I applied and pretty much immediately got a call, went in for an interview, And one of the questions is the guy who was going to be my boss turned out to be my boss, who also turned out to be an '05 FIDELT from UF. Again, go figure.
Confirmation, not coincidence.
You know, he asked me, how do you feel about traveling to China? Because that's part of the job. And I was like, oh my God. Because I was also thinking I'd be willing to get up and move to China for a good job, because, going back to that Peru experience is like, I could do that. I could get up and live in another country, not knowing that Chinese is a very different language and culture, that would not have been as like easy to integrate into as Spanish, which I learned, many years of my life, and it's very similar to English. So it worked out because I got the opportunity to go to China many times through this job. And so basically what I was doing, product development associate, was learning the basics of what I've done since and what I do now. It's bringing products from concept in a designer's mind to commercialization, sitting on the shelf in Home Depot, in Target, in Walmart, wherever, direct to consumer, online, whatever it may be. There's a process from how it goes from an idea, a concept in someone's mind, to a prototype, to testing and meeting government regulations for that product, to manufacturing and working through engineering problems, supply chain, getting it on boats overseas, or, and customs, getting it through customs, complying with that, sales channels, whether it's retail, online, marketing, all of this, it's the entire cycle of whether it's a physical product or, non-tangible, like an app or something. There's still a process, and there's a lot of similarities to get something from just an idea to something you could sell and run a business on. And it was crazy, this opportunity that I was given. And, I worked there for like 2 years, and the culture and the vibe wasn't right for me. And so I really wanted to move on and do something else. But as far as what I was doing was so interesting, and like, I couldn't have asked for a better first accidental opportunity, like flying to China to meet with the factories, find different suppliers, make sure like products and samples are getting made, and then being on calls with Home Depot and Lowe's and doing competitive research. And it was just like 101. It was basically like product development boot camp. And a lot of it because of, and yeah, I got to be careful the way, everything is a good experience, but there was things I didn't like, and so I did want to leave that position, which I ultimately did. But man, I couldn't have asked for anything better. It was like the training camp, boot camp for everything that I needed to know and learn. And so I did that. But probably a year into that is when I started my own company, Kickback Phone Stand, which started as Kick Track Phone Stand. And it was basically me and a fraternity brother who were on the same wavelength of, there's got to be more for us out there, like both inspired to start a business. And so we created, basically, it was going to be a phone, all-in-one kickstand, phone grip, and then phone finder and key finder when your phone is dead or your keys are lost. And it was going to have Bluetooth and electronics and a battery and circuit board. And, I had my engineering degree, but I was not ready for, what they don't teach you in school is how much things cost to create products, bring them to market. They don't teach you about compliance, certification, the FCC, which is the government agency that says, if you have a product that emits wireless waves, like Bluetooth, phones, anything, if that wave interferes with someone's pacemaker for their heart, or the airplanes flying above you, if it's causing interference, that's super dangerous. And so this is all very regulated by the government, and you don't learn any of that in school, and that all costs money to get tested, to get certified, let alone the cost of having an engineer that I found like through Upwork to design the circuit board, yada, yada, spent a ton of money. We did a Kickstarter that was exciting, but the success is defined relatively, right? And so at the time it was very successful, but to be honest, given everything I've done now, it was more of a learning experience. And starting that whole company was a learning experience. Spent a lot of money, but the way I think about it is that you spend a lot of money to go to school and they don't pay you, right? You don't get any of that money back. You just get the opportunity to go on to bigger and better things, right? You go pay to be a doctor, you pay ungodly sums of money, then you graduate with the hopes that someone's going to pay you for the knowledge that you gained to pay, right? And so whether it was through a formal avenue, what being a college, state university, or, you know, what do they say, like degree from Google and Uncle Google
University.
and cousin YouTube or whatever, you know, an MBA in the streets, more or less, is what I went and did. And I spent that money. But I learned everything that I needed to know that I wasn't, and I was getting a lot from my job, you know, at King of Fans, like going to China, that experience. But there was I wasn't involved in the e-commerce, right? Setting up an e-commerce store, like marketing, text message marketing, email marketing, Facebook advertising, pay-per-click advertising, like things you need to know to run a business in the 21st century, right? How to find freelancers online to do all of this stuff, you know what I mean? Just everything. And so I was learning that on my own, just spending every, you know, whether I was at work or at home, I was just grind, weekends, nights. And my girlfriend was like, you know, super patient. And I, again, shout out her for supporting me through that, because like I was just nonstop, you know, and I gained a lot of weight because like my health wasn't my priority. It was just like getting to where I needed to go. And I wasn't sure what that was. And we thought, you know, our goal was just to become millionaires, and that's all we cared about. Fast forward, that's not what's important. It's the freedom, you know, but when you're young, you don't really realize that. You want a Lamborghini and a boat and whatever. And so I left King of Fans at the end of 2019. I also left my own company at the end of 2019. So things end and things start when they're supposed to, right? And so my next job started at the beginning of 2020, which I got through a fraternity brother's dad. So again, this networking thing, man, like the value of that fraternity for sure paid off. And so that company did industrial electronics and controls. So the easiest way to explain that, because most people don't know what that is. So in your home or your apartment, there's a panel somewhere you open up and there's all the breaker switches that turn off the electricity. So electricity comes into your home on the big power lines at very high dangerous voltages. And then it comes into your house and steps down onto safer voltages that if you touch, it wouldn't kill you. You get shocked. But now imagine that at a factory, right? A place that's using big machines, big equipment, using a lot of electricity, high voltage, high power, dangerous stuff. And so this company that I worked for made basically controls, you know, on off time delay things to manage the electricity that goes to your big industrial equipment. So it was cool, you know, first at King of Fans, I learned consumer products, things you buy, you know, people like you and I go to Walmart or you know, like Home Depot, Lowe's, Target, whatever to buy. This was a totally different industry. It's industrial, right? So businesses running factories and buying big machinery and equipment are buying this. Different government regulations, different rules, similar product development process, but you know, kind of a different take on things. And so that was cool. And shout out C3 Controls, shout out Pete Damasimo, the best boss I ever had. You learn things from everyone everywhere you go, but it, you know, it wasn't again where I needed to be. And so leading into how I found Popl. So at the end of 2019, I left my company that I had started, as well as the company that I was working for, 9 to 5, 2 jobs. And then I just started kind of doing my own thing on Amazon. So I knew the phone accessory space very well. So the main product I had created was a magnetic accessory for pop sockets, which is, you know, the phone grip. So I made basically a little magnet attachment. So you could take it on, take it off, and stick the phone to a magnetic car mount in your car. This product didn't exist. I had this problem. I needed a solution, and I knew exactly every step to go through to do it very, very quickly and without wasting time and money. Because these are the things I had learned at this point. You know, move quickly, iterate, don't waste time, that kind of thing. And so I was selling these pop magnets on Amazon. And I was like, well, I guess this is what I'm going to do as my side hustle now, you know, and like just do Amazon. And so one day I was on Instagram just for marketing purposes, you know, like just seeing what's out there, probably looking at phone case companies, people I could maybe work with. and I saw this video, which it was Popl, and basically this was the viral video that launched Popl into what it is. And Jason and Nick went to UCLA, and it was a video of one of them at the UCLA gym. Their friend Ara was walking out, and they're like, "Oh, Ara, I didn't get your number." She's like, "Oh, no problem." She turns around, puts her phone up, and they're like, "Whoa, what's this?" And it pops up on the phone like magic with all her social media contact info. And that video ended up getting, so within the first 24 hours, like, I think they went to bed and it had a lot of views. They woke up and it was just like nutty, like millions of views, and it was getting like 10,000 views a second, like crazy numbers. And they were selling like Popls on cards out of their apartment, just like putting these things on, putting stamps, super unscalable. And the next day they ran out of them, and it just changed their business. But fast forward to today, that video has 80 million views. The Popl TikTok has 2 million followers verified, which is very like unheard of for businesses. Many of like the biggest brands that we know and love have, less than 1 million followers on TikTok. And so TikTok, if I could preach one thing for someone starting a business, what's that?
Don't have that much. Professional
Yeah,
sports teams.
ESPN doesn't have that many. And so that's one thing that I learned through all of this, is that social media and new and emerging platforms, you have to be on it. And another book that I had read, Gary Vaynerchuk's book, Crushing It, he talked about TikTok when it was Musical.ly. So Musical.ly was an American company that got bought by TikTok 4, 5, 6 years ago now. And he said, if you're not on Musical.ly, you're effing up, because this is a massive platform. And this is before it blew up. This was before 2020 and TikTok and COVID and TikTokers and all of this. This is when it was just Musical.ly. And he said, guys, if you're a business and you're not on Musical.ly, you're doing it wrong. And so I realized that when I was doing my phone kickstand company, that, this is a perfect product to stand up for TikTokers to record themselves. And I early on realized that because I read a book by Gary Vaynerchuk. You know what I mean? People that have spent years and years developing businesses and failing, and then write a book that you can listen an audiobook in and out in, a few hours. So that was major key. But anyway, I digress again. I saw this video on Instagram that they had reposted, and I was like, whoa, what is this? And I was thinking, maybe they'd be interested in a magnetic version that they could remove and stick the phone to the car, whatever. So I just sent a message, direct message, slid in the DMs to the Popl IG, and I was like, hey, what's up, guys? Would love to do a collab. We're a team of engineers, very experienced with launching products, just me in my bedroom, like saying we've got all this experience and people and whatever. And sure enough, I got a text back. And this all comes down to timing, because when I found them and reached out, they had just started their company. It was just Jason and Nick, the co-founders. I don't think Jeremy had even gotten involved yet as the third partner, who he came in and really had a lot of influence. And he came in a very similar way to me, and to talk about being receptive. Jason and Nick, 2 kids more or less out of college. Jason worked at Boeing for a year. Jason's a software developer. And I think Nick had, he's a year younger, so he had a few months of like commercial real estate, but kids more or less fresh out of school, when people like myself or Jeremy, who became their third partner, reached out and said, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Being open to it and receptive, and then having people come in, and now having me and Jeremy and everyone else that came in the way we did, having such pivotal roles in the company, is that being open, being receptive, like you mentioned earlier. Anyway, I reached out on Instagram, sent a message, and Jason was the one who runs our Instagram social media. And we started chatting, and I was like, yeah, I'll get you I'll make some prototypes for you, send them over. And I had my manufacturer in China that was doing the pop magnets, make some special ones for them. I sent them like a little box with instructions, whatever. And Jason and I had gotten on a call and connected. We had a lot in common. We liked talking to each other. Ultimately, the collab that I had in mind wasn't going to work out. Like they tested them. They didn't really work that well. No one really saw the value. And Jason told me when I first met them in person, he was like, yeah, I thought that was going to be the last time I talked to this kid. And, but at that point I realized I just had a feeling that this was something special and unique, and there was a lot of potential here. And I was like, man, there's more potential in this than my little magnets, you know? And I was like, I got to see if I could get involved in this somehow. And so once I realized that it wasn't going to happen, I was like, yo, Jason, I understand like this, you know, what we envision isn't going to work out, but I'll be honest, like I would love to work at this company one day. Um, and, and this is where maybe something else that I learned in quarantine is lead with value. So I did a lot for nothing for a while. You know, I even went out of my way and said, you know, I'd love to, because I had a whole list of TikTokers that I had worked with at Pop Magnets that we had sent product to that loved it and was posting videos basically for free. And I was like, I'd love to do that for you guys. You know, I have this entire list of all their mailing addresses and everything. And he was like, yeah, that's cool, whatever. And so I started reaching out and getting some phone numbers and addresses and sending to Jason. He was like, I think quickly realized that like I was actually like trying to do something. And then I was like, you know, I could reach out to other companies and do other kinds of collaborations. Could you maybe hook me up with a Bryce at popl.co email? He's like, yeah, we could definitely probably do that. Let me go talk to the team. Week and a half goes by. I didn't hear anything. And I was like, man. So I went on Google and created popl.bryce@gmail.com. Right? Just like self-starter. And I started sending out emails like on behalf of, you know, Bryce at Popl, and getting some good leads, like for partnerships, for influencers, things like that. And I'm sending them to Jason. And he's like, holy crap, like, okay, it's too much. Like, you know, he's actually doing this. And so then I got on a call with Jason and Jeremy and Nick, met them. We had, you know, hit it off, had good rapport. And then they actually made me a Bryce at popl.co email. Kept doing stuff for free, you know, like not asking for anything. I just, you know, because I had nothing, I didn't deserve anything. I had to lead with value. And then I helped them launch our first Popl wristbands, which was like a first iteration of this, which was not nearly as popular. But I did it quickly, you know, I got it done, I handled it. And then I started joining our daily stand-up meetings. And then on April 12th, so it's a little over 2 months ago, I started my first official full-time day at Popl. You know, replaced my previous salary. Now I get to, you know, bounce back from the East Coast to the West Coast, sunshine to sunshine, live in a house in Beverly Hills for a week, be with a bunch of awesome people, and do exactly what I want to do. It's not the self-tying Nike shoe, but it's better. It's actually better. And it's just crazy, you know, like who would have known? But I'm much happier here. I can guarantee you I'm much happier here than I would be at Nike. When I had reached out to pretty high ups at Nike that had gone to UF to ask for and we have a minute left, so I probably got to bounce here, but just asked to talk. And someone had said something like, you got to ask permission to go to the bathroom. So can you imagine like how much different my life would be if I was at Nike working on a self-tying shoe, asking permission to go to the bathroom, or I could wake up here and do whatever I want, you know? But
That is so fire. This is part one. This is part one. You know, this is good. This is the journey. Yeah. And then next time we're gonna do this, I'm gonna be in Cali in the Popl house, and we'll do a full product, do a full sales pitch. We'll do all that stuff. But I appreciate you for sharing your story, because this is actually a beautiful way to tie up episode part one of our part two of our two-part series, because it just shows, man, like there is no set path. And I just thank you for sharing your story of leading with value, always trying to create something, always running head first to adversity, because that's what it's about. And because you're willing to do it at such a young age in your 20s, now look at you in your mid 20s, setting up the rest of your life, you know, and now it's done. You figured out the time freedom hack, you know, and you figured out your shit, man. So I thank you so much. Have an awesome freaking team meeting. Thank you, Bryce, head of product and partnerships. Get at him, Bryce at popl.co. If you want to do a collaboration, or you want it, or maybe I might have a special discount code for some Popl product. But thank you guys. Thank you, not you guys, but thank you, Bryce, for sharing your story, sharing your experiences, and providing some information and inspiration.
Absolutely. It's been awesome. My first podcast. Such a pleasure. I appreciate you. It's good catching up, good talking. I'm excited about what you're doing and where you're going, and very excited for our part two. And yeah, very excited for you to come out here and meet everybody and have a good time in California. So we'll be talking soon.
Exactly. Thank you, bro. I appreciate you. This is the Credentials. Yeah, you learned a lot. Get motivated, get inspired, be grateful and be intentional. So thank you, Bryce. I appreciate you, bro.
All right, brother.
Ooh, yeah.
Have a
Part
great
two
day.
coming
Talk soon.
soon. Peace.